When I really think back and reflect on my life, I realize that I've always been a disruptor. Even as a kid, as a little kid, if things that the rest of society was conforming to did not make sense to me, then that absolutely was not what I wanted to do for myself. Growing up, like so many people out there, I had a really, really tough childhood. When you look at me from the outside in and everything that I'm doing now, you wouldn't peg that with me, right? But I did. I had a lot of hardship, and I used to ask, why do these things happen to me, right? You get sucked into and stuck in a victim mentality quite often. Like so many other people, I was bullied too. I was bullied in high school. I was bullied as an adult by a bunch of baseball moms, like just crazy stuff. And it hurts, being picked on, being made fun of, being talked about behind your back, losing friends. These things hurt. Not getting the job that you applied for, being criticized constantly by family members. But yet that's real life for so many of us, and I realized that hardship is a total blessing. When you let time pass and you reflect on what hardship taught you and how hardship makes you fall flat on your face and forces you to learn how to pick yourself up, that's actually awesome, in my opinion. My name is Dr. Jodi, and I am the owner of the Keto Prescription Clinic in Honolulu, Hawaii. I am the only accredited metabolic health practitioner, and I teach my patients how to do low carb and clean keto. So I'm just a little Asian girl, one person, 5'1", 115 pounds. But if I don't start talking about this in Hawaii and with everything that's wrong with our food choices and how we're practicing healthcare, which affects people's lives, who will? People struggle with food addictions and eating behaviors. So many of us have been taught that food equals love. Food equals comfort and happiness. Food soothes the pain of whatever it is that you're currently dealing with, or of something that happened a long time ago. And that's the truth. We all struggle with it. When a doctor tells someone to quote unquote diet and exercise, it literally accomplishes nothing. And often all it does is make someone feel ashamed. In fact, there's a medical term for it. It's called fat shaming. Packaged foods that are high in preservatives and ingredients like maltodextrin, dextrose, acesulfame, potassium, the hundreds of chemicals in energy drinks. There are over 120 names for sugar in our processed food industry. 120 names. That's ridiculous. When you put someone on a packaged meal program, you're not helping them at all. They're spending a lot of money and you're filling their body with harmful chemicals that do damage. You're not teaching them how to eat real food that you find in a regular grocery store correctly. To properly tell my story, we need to go all the way back to 2001. That's when I was working at a big retail pharmacy here, counting pills by fives, standing on my feet all day, answering a phone that rang nonstop, dealing with questions from frustrated patients and customers. Why isn't their prescription ready? Why is it taking so long? People don't understand how hard pharmacists work. We are an over-medicated society, grossly over-medicated society. And prescription orders, new and refills, are constantly coming in. Phone, fax, through the e-system. I mean, it's craziness. You know, one of the pharmacies I worked at, there were 9 pharmacists, 9 of us, standing there shoulder to shoulder with like 8 or 9 pharmacy techs. And that still was not enough. You know, the 24-hour pharmacy had to eventually be invented. The drive-through pharmacy had to be invented to meet the demand of an over-medicated society. You work nights, you work holidays, you work like a dog. And I was depressed. During this period of my life, you know, I'm a doctor of pharmacy, I'm making great money. But the work that I was doing was literally depressing me. Simultaneously, I was going through a really tough time in my personal life. My daughter was only 2 or 3 years old at the time, Kira, and I was a single mom. I was at odds with my parents, and so I was having to raise her by myself and figure out how to do it, working a schedule that constantly changed every 2 weeks in the retail setting. And I was going through so much stress that one day I literally woke up in pain from head to toe. Every joint in my hands, my feet, my knees, my hips, my back, my neck were extremely stiff and swollen. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. So, you know, like you go through the normal thing. You go to your primary care doctor who runs a bunch of labs on you. They don't really know what's wrong. They have a couple thoughts on it. So then I got referred to a rheumatologist. And they were trying to figure out if I had lupus or fibromyalgia. You know, I told them I think rheumatoid arthritis might run in my family. So then I was started on medication after medication after medication. I mean, I went through maybe 3 or 4 pills with some really funky side effects before finally being switched over to injections. And at the time, it was a huge blessing for me because I was on an injection where I had to inject myself in the abdomen twice a week. And I did that for 13 years. But you know what? I was willing to do that because it put all my symptoms at bay. When you have arthritic joints, and it's always much worse in the morning. You know, my son, I had a son, you know, a few years later, my son Lane, I couldn't even carry him as a baby because you have no dexterity, you have no use. You know, turning a door handle or, you know, using a can opener to open a jar. You can't do these things. People don't realize. So the injections were a lifesaver for me. But what I was told was that I'm going to be on these for the rest of my life. And this one is eventually going to stop working. And then I'm going to have to be switched to this one. And this one, eventually ending up on IV infusions. And that is a dismal outlook, that you are now reliant on medications. So what happened was, I'm tootling along in my life, I'm on injections, I'm like, well, this is just my life, right? In 2017, a very close family member of mine had a heart attack, almost died. A colleague said to me, you should put that person on keto. And I said, well, what the heck's a keto? And he said, you know what? Research it. Just research it. And I was like, okay, sure, why not? As I researched keto, when I added it all up, it was like over 200 hours of books, studies, YouTube videos, anything I could get my hand on. Because as I was going through this, I realized, holy crap, we are completely practicing medicine backwards. Like, all these light bulbs were going off in my head. And it was fascinating because as I was researching keto, I was remembering basic things that I had learned in pharmacy school. What people don't realize is the the classes and the educational track that PharmDs take is very closely mirrors that of an MD, except throughout each year we get a lot more courses on medications, how drugs are made, drug interactions, exactly how drugs interact with the human body, okay? And I had all of these revelations. It was so eye-opening, and I was actually freaking out at the same time, because I was realizing that millions of people out there are being mistreated. And like I was saying before, we are so overly medicated, and nobody is addressing the root of the problem for so many of these medical conditions that used to not exist now. A century ago, so many of these things did not exist. Think about that. And the root cause for so many things is sugar. And it's like we talk about salt. Salt is bad. Salt is bad. Fat is bad. The whole time we should have been talking about sugar and how bad sugar is for us. So this was just incredibly eye-opening for me. So eventually I opened up a keto-based medical practice. And in a little over 2 years, I have 1,000 patients under my belt. I get to help so many different types of patients. I've worked with local chefs on keto menus and keto dishes, and all of it is so rewarding. You know, I don't put my patients on diet pills, injections, or expensive pre-packaged meals, bars, or shakes. Again, we have to learn how to do this with regular food, because that's real life. And you know what? I'm so sick and tired of dieting gimmicks that take advantage of people in a vulnerable state. And you know, it's not even about the weight loss. People are malnourished. Like, honestly, people are so protein deficient and deficient in core vitamins and minerals. It's mind-blowing. And it's because of all the fast food, processed food, packaged food, and convenient food that we've been brainwashed to eat, right? Drive-thrus, frozen dinners, all of these types of things. There's a war going on out there in our food industry, right? Some people might say, oh, it's vegan versus keto and carnivore, or weight loss pills versus actual meal plans. There's just so many little wars that are all contributing to what, to me, is the true pandemic, the true epidemic in society. We have become a culture where we are constantly fed messaging and visual cues to get us to make poor food choices. And this is done by design, right? I learned from Dr. Joan Eiflin. There's something called the food addiction business model that's employed by all the big food companies. And we've become a society of convenience. We're so busy. We multitask. We've got to take our kids to sports all year round because, God forbid, they have a break between seasons. It's like craziness, you know, how much we've come to rely on convenient food. And the food industry loves this. They love it because they can fill your food with sugar, chemicals, trans fats, all kinds of stuff that's slowly and insidiously making you sick, but you don't realize it. And this is what needs to be talked about. The avocado market is tainted. The extra virgin olive oil market is tainted. Like, nothing is exempt these days, and that's why education is key. Education and knowledge right now is so much power when it comes to changing your medical state of health and improving the quality of your life. You know, in my clinic, I have the extreme privilege of seeing patients' lives transform 1 month at a time. And for me, that's the currency. It's not the money. It's seeing people start to smile, start to have confidence and feel good about themselves, gain confidence in the kitchen. So many people don't have kitchen confidence. They don't know how to grocery shop, cook. When I say things to them like, eat meat, like they look at me with a blank look on their face like, oh, what do you mean? It's just so incredible to see people grow and learn. And we have a community in my patients. It's called the Keto Hana community, because in Hawaiian, Ohana means family. And that's what we are. We support each other. We share what we're eating. We ask questions in a safe environment. It's being able to truly educate and help my patients through listening, really listening to them, learning about their lifestyle, what's going on, their stressors, the demands on their life, where they grocery shop, how many times a week they have to cook. By spending time with them, by laughing, crying, getting to know each other. This journey with my keto clinic has just been more than anything I could have ever imagined, and to truly help people is the most rewarding thing that I could have ever done, that I could be doing. Hawaii is such a beautiful place. Like, we are so lucky to live here. The scenery, the ocean, the culture, and most of all, the people. Oh, and yes, the food, that too. There's so much to share with all of you around the world about my home state. And there are so many moving stories to be told through the lens of improving how healthcare is practiced and changing lives with low carb or keto. Food is fun. Who doesn't love food? And when you can talk about it and share about it in a way that can change lives and yet be delicious at the same time, it's like a no-brainer. Getting healthy doesn't have to suck. By sharing some of my amazing patient success stories, like letting them tell you their story. By going around with all my funny friends on food adventures and teaching all of you through this show what to eat at home, cooking tips, what to order when eating out, where to go. By talking to so many experts with the intention of sharing with you and educating you. That's the purpose of the Ket-Oh show. I never thought that at the age of 49, I would be thriving like this. It's like after you have your kids, you're like, well, okay, I guess that's it. And you slowly gain weight. You're moving slower than you used to. You're like aging. Keto, for me and so many of my patients, has been the fountain of youth. Dr. Jodi and the Keto Prescription, I'm just getting started. Who knows where this adventure is going to take me.